Howdy folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm Michael, and today we're actually going to hear some stories from a friend of mine who is a relatively new hunter, Clint McInnes. Clint is based out of Utah. He's a tattoo artist, and within the last few years he's completely fallen in love with hunting, and he's gotten into it for all of the right reasons. So I'm not going to steal any more of his story. I'm going to let Clint go ahead and take it from here. But again, thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the stories. All right, Clint. Well, thanks for joining us, man. I'm excited to have you. I figure we'll just kick things off by letting you do a quick introduction of yourself.
Yeah, my name's Clint McInnes. I'm a newer hunter, only been hunting for about the last 3 years. This will actually be my third season. Didn't grow up hunting, grew up on a farm, so we didn't have to hunt. It was really easy because they were all in a pasture. So I didn't learn all of the valuable skills that I am now trying to make up for at the age of, now I'm 38. So yeah, I'm new to that. I'm a tattoo artist in Utah and work out of Salt Lake City, and I live in a small town just outside of Salt Lake.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm a new hunter as well. Got a couple years on you. I think I've been doing it for like 5, but I think you've probably had more success than I have. What got you started? Like, was it just that you got the itch sitting on the couch one day? I wanted to go hike around with some struggle sticks, or where did you? What fired you up?
No, honestly, my wife's a nutritionist, and we're always looking for the ways that we can eat the healthiest. And for us, that included like buying beef from the local butcher, from local farmers that we know where it came from. Yeah. And we kind of wanted to go one step more than that and introduce our own power into this and do what we could. So she actually didn't grow up hunting either. Her dad hunted when she was younger, and her sister hunts now, but she'd never taken the opportunity. So we actually went on this journey together. And part of it was I was sitting around on the couch and I watched an episode of Meat Eater. And then I was like, well, this looks interesting. I could get down with this. And the rest is kind of history, man. I dove into everything I possibly could. I actually got my hunter's education completed at like the age of 35 or possibly 34. Yeah, had to go to like the ground level of doing this and figuring it out. So yeah, it was good to kind of go down that path with her. She had her hunter's education card, so I thought that we were somewhat in good hands because I felt like she had experience, and that's a story in and of itself. She did not have an experience, so yeah, we can get into all of that too. But yeah, we just wanted a healthier way to feed our families, and this was one of the best ways that we can do that.
That's awesome, man. It's a similar story you hear from a lot of new hunters where, wanting to know where your meat comes up. I was a little bit different where I had some friends that were going vegan and it became an ethical thing. And I was like, I like meat too much. I wasn't so much worried about the nutrition, but I was like, at some point I should know what it's like to harvest my own meat if I'm going to keep eating it, because I don't plan on going vegan anytime soon. But it's still in the same vein there, and it's something that's pretty common, and I think bringing a lot of hunters to or a lot of new people to hunting these days. So
yeah, I agree, and I actually have several vegan clients who talk to me about this all the time, and they're kind of fascinated that I took it upon myself. They don't necessarily want to do that, but they have respect for it. And they said if they ever ate meat, that would be the way that they wanted to go, which is cool to hear.
Yeah, it's I've had the similar conversation as well. It's we're walking the same path here, Clint. I have a vegan friend who just every time we talk, he's like, "Tell me about your hunting. I want to know everything." He has no real interest in it, but he doesn't like the people going to the grocery store and being oblivious to where their meat comes from. So he's very interested in hearing my stories. So that's cool, man. That's very cool.
And commercial farming, let's be real, commercial farming is the absolute devil of eating. Absolutely. There is no such thing as, I don't care how much you put cage free and pasture fed and all that crap. When you come down to a large scale commercial farm, it's not a good thing as far as like animal welfare. I promise you.
Absolutely. Nope, I agree 100%. Well, we're going down the wrong path here. Let's turn the other way before we go too far, and talk a little bit about your stories, man. What set us up? Put us in your shoes. When was this hunt? What were you hunting? What were you hunting with? And go from there.
So our first hunt, my wife and I drew the same tag, and it's actually the tag she has this year too. But it was a muzzleloader mule deer hunt, and so I had to actually buy a muzzleloader. I have a lot of guns, but I don't have a muzzleloader. So we had to buy a muzzleloader for this hunt after we found out that we had tags for that. And again, it was our first ever hunt. I thought that I assumed incorrectly that she had hunted. And so I was kind of relying on, oh yeah, my wife's going to guide me on these things. And she knows what she's doing. And I kept telling friends this, and she hadn't heard it. And I hadn't asked her like, oh, have you killed anything? I haven't said anything about that to her. And I remember about 2 weeks before our season started, I was on a walk with her and I was on the phone with a friend of mine real quick, just kind of finishing up a phone call. And I had mentioned, yeah, my wife's going to take me out. She's my adult on this hunt. So she's going to show me what's up. And I hang up the phone and she's like, why did you say that? And I said, well, because you're the one that's hunted out of us. And she's like, no, I haven't. And so I had assumed that she had done all of this and had brought animals down. So now at 2 weeks left, I'm like, oh dear. And now we have to go and learn all of what we can in these 2 weeks. So it was really crunch time. And I had a lot of friends that were hunters that offered to go with us, but it was something that we wanted to share together.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so we went out on our own, and I think she cheats because she's Native American and they have some kind of calling with the land. I don't understand it, but she actually
Just
put
in
her
her
deer
blood.
down. Yeah, she put her deer down the second morning, and
Wow. Doe.
made
You
a
said your two doe tags, right?
no. These were both buck tags.
Okay.
So yeah, my wife is amazing, but she's also one that wants to just fill the freezer. She does not care anything else. So we found this Spike who he just kind of hung out for, and we actually saw him the first evening, but my wife didn't want to try and cut a deer up in the dark for the first time, which was probably a smart call.
Yeah. That's a wise decision. Wise decision.
Yeah. See, and I tend to not think things through. I would have shot if it would have been my turn to shoot, but I wanted to get her a deer first. So we went back to the same spot in the morning, kind of unknowingly that like deer kind of pattern in that same manner. And we didn't bump those deer out. So we went back to the same spot, and sure enough, that Spike was right back where we left him the night before, just on a different hill. So she said, yeah, I want to shoot this time. And she made a great 90-yard shot. That deer didn't move, literally dropped where it was at. And that was the end of that. But then it was, hey, how do we cut this thing up?
Now what do we do? Did you bring a knife? I didn't bring a knife.
Yeah. So I'd actually saved videos on my phone from YouTube so that we could watch them in the field. And we'd obviously watched them a bunch of times at home, but that's not the same thing as being out there.
Yeah.
So literally watching step-by-step tutorials as we're going on this first deer by ourselves. And when I say by ourselves, I mean my wife, because I'm standing there holding the phone and I don't want to get the phone bloody and want to run it back and forth and pause and all of that when we need to. So my wife's getting elbow deep in this deer while I'm standing back and holding stuff. And it was kind of funny because I'm watching her do this and I'm just amazed, but I'm also watching ticks crawl up her arm and I'm like, I don't want to touch this thing. Ticks really freak me out. They're like one of my main fears in life. So she did really great. And probably halfway through of quartering this deer up, I'm looking at the stuff that we've got in our backpacks and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to haul any meat back. And we're about 2 miles from the truck. And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, our bags are too full. Like, we're going to get maybe like half of this, if that. And she's like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, why don't you finish cutting up the deer and I'm going to hurry and skedaddle back to the truck and come back with fresh packs with nothing but water in them. And she's like, you're going to leave me in the wild with a deer. Yes. Yeah, babe. Do you trust me? And yeah, I guess. So she finished cutting up the deer while I ran back to camp and emptied out our bags and made sure that we had enough room for meat. And when I got back, I walked upon this site that looked like the animal carcass had been out there for months because there was not a shred of meat on this thing.
Picked all the rib meat, just
everything, man. And I'm not even joking. Like, there was no rib meat. There was nothing.
Yeah, I guess she had the time, right?
Yeah, she had the time. And honestly, we want to utilize as much of this deer as we can. This is our first deer together. So yeah, she had picked it clean. The vultures got nothing that day except for guts. So it was really cool to see her do that. I have some really cool pictures, and we talk about it all the time. And she killed that deer at roughly like 8:30 in the morning, and we were eating it at 1 p.m.
That's awesome.
One of the most amazing feelings in the world.
What was the first cut that you guys cooked up?
Oh, we totally ate backstrap first.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We know what the good stuff is. So yeah, we ate backstrap first, and that was it for us. We spent the day at the house since we had already had a deer down, and then we ended up going back out the next morning and getting right back after it. And then after that, it was me getting my deer, which I'm a different kind of person, and I'm very competitive. So when it came to me getting my deer, I did not want to just get a spike. We already had meat in the freezer, so I wanted to step it up a little bit.
Yeah.
The deer didn't want to
more
cooperate. Mature. Yeah,
of course.
The deer didn't want to cooperate, which I didn't realize how hard this actually was. But it took me the rest of the 8-day season to get mine. And I did get a nice deer. I got a nice 4-point out of it. But somewhere in between when my wife got her deer and when I got mine, my wife had kind of given up on me being a good hunter. I think she said something about me being white. It was racially driven. I know that. But she had kind of given up, and she's like, I've got kids to run around and all this stuff. Like, why don't you go and try and get this done and call me, since I was hunting somewhat close to the house. So the plan was I go out, and if I get a deer, I call her, and she comes up with the backpacks, because that's when the work starts, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hunted my butt off for the rest of those few days, which was I only went by myself probably 2 or 3 days in all actuality. And I ended up calling a really good friend of mine and saying, hey, I don't know where deer are, and I can't find them. I have
It's a good
searched
question.
all over the mountain, and he's a very good hunter, knows what he's doing. He's been kind of doing it his whole life. And he said, tonight after work, I'm going to cruise up and I'm going to show you where these does are. And I'm going to show you how they pattern in the evening and what they're going to do in the morning. And I'm just going to show you that stuff. And then you'll have more of an idea. And I was like, all right, cool. So we went up. Mind you, this is pretty early season. This isn't rut time for mule deer in Utah. So we went up. He cruised up after work, and we set up a spotting scope. We're about 1,000 yards away, and I've got my gun just in case. But he sets up his spotting scope, and he's like, holy crap, there's a huge 4x4 in there. And I'm like, no way. I'm going after it now. And this is like pretty close to sunset. And he's like, you're just going to blow him out. Like, don't worry about it tonight.
Yeah.
And this is the day before the last day of the hunt. And I was like, well, he's right there. He's going to be gone in the morning. And that's how I thought the deer moved. And he's like, no, man, like, let's just make a game plan for the morning. And you can get on him. Fully expecting that deer should not have been there. I don't know what he was doing down with the does, just at the wrong place at the right time for me. So we made a game plan for the morning, and I was going solo because he had to work. So I went up and I I got to where I was supposed to be, kind of made a little hide in this tree to where none of these deer could really see me. And as they start coming up in the morning light and feeding through this grove, I'm watching these deer, and these does start coming through, and all of a sudden this doe pops up, and she's only about 10 yards from me, and she's staring straight at me. And I had no idea what to do, but I'm watching all the rest of the deer behind her, but I can't move. And I'm on all fours because I was moving around the tree at the same time she popped up. So I'm kind of losing my mind, thinking that this doe is going to blow out of there and all these deer are going to be gone. Well, I watched that big 4x4 deer pass by in the grove behind her.
Oh,
and
no.
I'm watching him pass, and the life is draining out of me, and this guy's gone forever, right? So I'm kind of losing my mind. And after all 30 or 40 of these deer pass through this grove, this doe who's standing in front of me just turns around and walks off. She doesn't even run off. She just didn't like something about me.
Yeah.
Obviously, she was onto something, and I'm glad I didn't move. But she just turns around and walks off. Now I'm mad at everything, and I don't think that anything's gonna happen. So I end up texting my buddy, "Hey man, this stupid doe blew me out of here," and he says, "Relax, I'm gonna send you some stuff on X, which is a great tool when you're new to hunting."
Yeah.
He says, "I'm gonna send you
in
some
the field
stuff."
and actually have service, right?
Yeah. Considering I was only 2 miles behind my house, this was pretty easy. So he sent me some stuff, and he said, "Hey, follow this trail, and if you get a shot opportunity, great. But if not, stay off of them. Like, don't sneak in more." So I followed them around for the afternoon, got to where they were bedded down, and couldn't get into them. It was really thick scrub oak and nasty stuff. You look at it and it makes sound. Pretty sensitive. And about that time, this is probably noon when they're all totally settled. I look down at my phone and I'm like, oh man, it's my wife's birthday. I should probably go and take her to lunch. So I drove down to the house and I took my wife to lunch, and we had a nice lunch together. And then I went right back up to it, and I told her everything that was going on, and she knew that I was on something. But I got back up there and got into place in a different spot for when they were feeding across this grove again for the evening. And I got there pretty early, so I set up a really nice hide this time. You couldn't see me for anything, and I had a good shooting lane down in front of me, about 150 yards, which I felt comfortable shooting with a muzzleloader, and just nice and settled in. And pretty soon here, the deer start coming in. I'm set up, and these deer start coming in, and I had made my blind a little too close to where they were coming in at. I'm within spitting distance of some of these does and spikes that are walking by, and I don't spit very far. They are literally close enough for me to smell, and I'm like shaking with every deer that walks by. Not all of them are that close, but a good majority of them are walking by literally within 10 feet of me.
Jeez.
And I'm taking pictures on my
winded.
phone. Yeah. I'm taking pictures on my phone, and I'm sending them to my wife, and she's like, holy cow. And I'm waiting for this 4x4, and my buddy texts me, and he says, have you seen anything yet? And I said, no, man, I don't think he's here. I think something happened, and he bumped. And he's like, no, he'll be there. He says, I'm leaving work early. I'm too excited. I can't take it. So he leaves work.
That's a good buddy.
Drives about the 30 minutes to where I'm at, and he sets up his spotting scope in the same place that we were the night before. And he texts me and he says, no, dude, he's right there. He's in the grove. And I'm like, no, I'm in the grove. He's not in the grove. And he says, he's literally like right about to cross over into where this cliff face is. And I was like, no, that's impossible because that's behind me. Well, I turn around
Oh
and look,
no! Oh
and
no!
he's 80 yards behind me, and he's staring straight at me when I turn around and look. And I'm like, oh man. And he's probably 20 yards from crossing over this cliff face. As soon as he gets in that cliff face, he's gone forever. Like,
Uh-huh.
I don't get a shot. And it's also approaching sundown. So
Yeah.
we're getting tight on time. So as slowly as I could possibly move, I get the gun worked around. And again, this is muzzleloader, so one shot. Not the most efficient things. I can't believe wars were fought with these things, right?
Yeah. Right. And
Uh,
ones that are even worse than the ones that we have now.
yeah. But yeah, so I get the gun turned around and kind of twist my body and get over to where he's at. And he's just eating through this grove. He's not too worried about anything. He doesn't smell me, doesn't see me, nothing. So finally get it turned around and fire off a shot. And he with a muzzleloader, you have all the smoke, and I can't see where he's at. So he drops out of my sight line, and I'm like, well, I missed. He's gone.
Yeah,
And
I can see just waving your hand, trying to clear the smoke out so you can just see
yeah,
something.
yeah. So I'm kind of freaking out, and my phone starts going off, and it's my buddy down in the canyon. He'd watched it unfold on the spotting scope. And he's like, you throttled him, man. I hope that was you that shot, because I don't know where you're at. And I'm like, yeah, that was me. I don't know where he's at. And he's like, he dropped where he stood. And I just couldn't see him because he dropped behind weeds. And so I stood up and I walked over there. And again, me being a rookie, I made a mistake right there. Didn't have my gun. Gun also wasn't loaded. And I walked over and he wasn't quite all the way gone, which was heartbreaking for me, man.
Yeah.
I'm a softie when it comes to animals. So I immediately, like, he wasn't going anywhere, but I immediately run back to my little hide, grab the gun, reload it real quick.
7 minutes later.
yeah, no joke. So I get everything set up and I'm ready to go. And I walk back over there and make this last shot. And that was when everything kind of hit me. Like I said, I'm a softie, and it hit me really bad emotionally. I'd never killed something intentionally.
Yeah.
And
it's big. It's heavy.
I struggled with it, man. I sat down and I'm not going to lie, I sat down and cried.
Yeah.
And I knew the gravity of what I had done, and I had realized that before, but until you actually do it, you don't know what you're going to go through.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing how in the moment it's not there, but as soon as you've completed this, action, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's definitely something else, and I don't think that I was as prepared for that portion as I thought that I was. So I get done with my little crying session, and a couple minutes later, my buddy makes it to me, and he's like, well, man, how do you feel? And I said, well, I just got done crying, so, that's cool. And he's like, man, I cried on my way over here because I helped you with this. And that's huge for me. And I didn't realize the bond that he and I would form immediately, even more tight than we were. So
absolutely,
it was really cool. And to have him there while I'm trying to cut something up in the dark was great too. So I called my wife and I told her I had this deer down, and I sent her a pin. She didn't have OnX, and so she tried to use her pin with Google Maps, and that does not work. And it was getting dark, so she calls me and she's like, I can't find you, and I don't know where to go. And I said, you just go back to the car. We'll handle this. And my buddy Lyle and I, we started cutting up this deer, and he's showing me a more efficient way to do what we were doing before. Mm-hmm. And so we did the gutless method on this deer, and we still took, a ton of meat out of this thing. And then we go and we get it all in our game bags, and this deer wasn't covered in ticks like my wife's was, so I wasn't afraid to touch it. But we get it all put in game bags, and then I turn around and I'm like, oh man, because my wife was going to join me, I have a day pack that is not made to haul very
Yeah.
much meat. And he's like, well, why don't you get the head and you haul that down? And I'm like, he has his like actual meat packing backpack.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, man, like there's a lot of meat. I'm going to carry that and you carry the head. And he's like, no, I can't let you do that. And I'm like, there's a lot of meat here. This is a big deer. Nice, mature 4 point. And he's like, well, you don't have a choice because like this is the way we're doing it. And I'm like, all right, but the first minute you get tired, like I'm taking that pack from you. And he says, all right. Well, the moon had just come up and it was a full moon that night. And we actually ended up walking back to the trucks in a full moon with no headlamps, no nothing. I mean, that's how bright it was. And that's kind of my city. You get away from a lot of light pollution. So
Yeah.
super cool experience. We ended up getting back to my house probably around 11 o'clock, and my wife had stayed up to see this, and just felt really accomplished. And again, because I was exhausted, the next morning I woke up and I was like, holy cow, man, like I killed something yesterday, and it hit me pretty hard again. Not to the point where I had to sit down and cry or anything, but it was still emotionally a big moment for me of I'm going to feed my family with this.
Yeah.
And
You got a big family.
yeah. So yeah, it was a lot for me, and I was really proud of myself, and proud of my wife for getting her first year. And for me, after that, it was all over. I knew that everything was going to revolve around this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I know that's such a weird thing to say when you have one experience. And I feel weird even saying it now that like I knew my life was going to change. Well, after that, as I'm driving home from work, I'm looking at the mountains differently.
Yeah.
Every time I eat food, I'm oh man, like we should go to Texas and get hogs instead of eating this pork that we got from the butcher or the store. Um, Everything changed, and it still is to this day. I still look at the mountains differently on the drive home. And I know these mountains like the back of my hands, but I don't know them like according to hunting and an animal standpoint. I know where to
Mm-hmm.
camp and I know where to hike and I know those things. This changed how I looked at mountains for the better. And
Yeah.
I still have this curiosity now of, oh, I wonder what that looks like for animals during this
Yeah.
time of year.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. I'll say that when I started hunting and had a similar experience, all of a sudden I was like, "Why are we on trails? Like, why don't we just walk into the woods?" You know, it's you
Yeah.
just want to you want to experience it in a different way. So I can't say it's the exact same thing that you're feeling, but it's something along the same lines, and it's really hunting's the only way to get it. And
Yeah.
I don't even think you actually even need to get to the full point of harvest to get there. You just need to have some of these really close and intimate experiences with these animals. It's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing is, I tell everybody that eats meat that they should go on a hunt with an ethical hunter. Not, they don't even have to hunt, but I want them to see the process of what goes into those things.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never thought about that.
Yeah,
Well, that's awesome, Clint.
that was a long story, man.
No, that was
Jeez.
good. I don't know if you have any other ones you want to tell.
I do have, dude. This most recent hunt that I was just on with pigs. So I've been down to Texas a couple of times now. To I helped out with a hunt, and then the second time I was actually hunting. So yeah, popped down to Texas for a couple of times. And if you want to learn how to actually practice that last little bit of a hunt, Texas
Yeah.
is the place for it, because
Absolutely.
you're not doing all the prep work that we're doing in the West as far as like you're e-scouting for 6 months and then putting boots on the ground and that kind of stuff. In Texas, you're literally doing the last day of any hunt because you're going out to
to kill a pig, or one of these other animals. They've got a ton of exotics down there.
Yeah.
Um,
Even the whitetail.
but,
There's more whitetail in Texas than I think the rest of the country combined.
well, Texas is bigger than the rest of the country combined. If you ask a Texan,
That is also true.
It's not actually true, but if you ask a Texan, it is bigger. But yeah, Texas is a wild place, and this last one that I went on was me trying to harvest pigs with my bow. I hadn't harvested anything with a bow, and so that was a whole new experience too, because when you get in with a bow, it's a different intimacy, and it's I mean, you can practice a bow every single day of your life, but again, until you have an animal in front of your face, it's a different thing. And this animal's only 20 yards from you, and 20 to 30, and you've got to practice these shots and be ready to go, because pigs are jumpy and they don't want to sit still.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I harvested 2 pigs with my bow, and it was a successful hunt for me, and just amazing time. It's actually with a company called High Caliber Hunts, and they're actually to put higher caliber people together for the purpose of going out and hunting. But with these amazing people that you get to build a relationship with in the meantime, and they come together and talk about awesome things as far as like how to be a better person, and how to run a business better, and new business ideas, new marketing strategies, whatever. There's a lot of that goes on at these camps. It's not just about that hunt.
Yeah. I bet that's actually a pretty special experience. You mentioned in your last story that Lyle teared up just in the act of helping you with, the little bit that he did. And now you've got this group of guys that are all helping each other to the same common goal. And I bet that it's even more so than that maybe experience there. So that's awesome. That's super cool.
Yeah. It's an incredible idea. I love the idea, and I'll definitely be doing more of them just because of the relationships I've built from these things. Just super good people. You get to go hang out with your friends. And again, it's much different than hunting that I've ever known. Mm-hmm. Hunting in the West, we may talk at night, but usually there's 2 of us out there and we're hiking our butts off. So we're not sitting there talking about business and marketing. Yeah. And we're not talking about how to be a better dad. But in these camps, that's the exact kind of stuff. And we're having these deeper conversations that really need to happen in life. Yeah. And not on social media. Weird.
And what are these called again? You said you did it with a group?
Yeah. This is called High Caliber Hunts. My friend Colin runs this, and just a cool opportunity to go out and meet people who are just really trying to kill it in life and do some fun stuff. He's got, you can see a whole lineup of hunts on his website as far as like pig hunts, but also they're doing bow fishing. Mm-hmm. They're doing a whitetail hunt in the late fall, that kind of stuff. So it's not just pig hunts, but the same idea exists through all of these things.
Yeah, the same camp of strong individuals.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Anything else, man? Any other stories? Any other gobblers or whatever it might be, or you think you're good for the day? You've given us a lot, man.
I mean, yeah, I'm long-winded, so I love the sound of my own voice.
Oh, good. Most people don't.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, no. I mean, and let's go back a step too. Now that I've gotten into hunting, my kids who wouldn't have had the opportunity to hunt very much, as far as like an adult taking them out. My daughter last year, she said, "Dad, can we hunt turkeys?" Yeah, we can hunt turkeys. And so we went out and we didn't get it done. The turkey is an incredibly frustrating bird. Oh, yeah. We heard them. We saw them. We never got close enough to shoot them. Incredibly frustrating. And then I go down to Texas and they're everywhere. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Like, I can just throttle this bird any point of the day? And they're like 3 times the size of the ones we have here.
Yeah, right.
But it's getting my kids' curiosity piqued. And like I said, my daughter has her first deer tag this year. And she's so excited about that. And she just wants to get out there already. And I'm like, well, we got to wait a couple months. But it'll come in due time, and I'm excited for her to get out there and share this same exact experience that I shared with my wife and shared with one of my best friends, with my kid.
That's awesome.
That's a memory that she still talks about the turkey hunting, how frustrating it was and that kind of stuff. But even though we weren't successful, she still talks about it.
Yeah.
Learning how to do it and hearing them and seeing all this different wildlife that we don't normally see.
Yeah. My oldest is 3, and his first word besides mom and dad was deer, because we lived in Texas at the time, and we'd open our windows every morning and there'd be deer in the yard. So that was his first word. And I'm hoping to sharpen my learning curve and get it to the point where I can pass some knowledge on to him by the time he's actually old enough to hunt, because he's definitely going to love it. I've had nights where he wakes me up. You know, the 3-year-olds, they just come into your room and they'll wake you up for no reason. And he goes, "Dad, we got to shoot the elk. We gotta eat them." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, buddy, get in here." And he jumps into bed with me and back to sleep. But he dreams of it, so I'm hoping that he stays that way. And I think it's important to pass these things on. And it's cool that 2 guys like us that found it on our own. Really, I mean, you had your wife's help. I found it by myself. But we're gonna now start passing the tradition down. So it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, and I think even without that, my family ate the pig, a portion of the pig that I killed in Texas just yesterday, actually. And I mean, my son, who's not into hunting, I sent him that picture of me with the pig when I shot it, and he's like, "Dad, that's awesome. That's super cool." He doesn't want to hunt yet. Yeah. He may eventually, but right now, knowing that dad actually puts like physical meat on the table, that's a big deal to him.
Yeah.
And it's cool to go through that and see it from my side of, I'm not just buying groceries. I'm actually providing a substance for these kids.
Absolutely. And I bet that he thinks his dad's a lot cooler than all his friends' dads that put on the short shorts and go jogging every morning.
I mean, I still put on the short shorts, but I just go a different direction.
Yeah, hiking instead of jogging. There you go.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome, Clint. Cool, man. Well, how do you want people to see what you got going on here? Do you want to give them your Instagram or anything like that? Or do you want to remain mysterious and drift off into the wind?
God, it sounds really cool when you put it like that, though. So maybe
I'm giving you options.
Is the way to go. No, if you want to follow me and check out any of the work I do, or if you're in Utah at all and want to get tattooed, my Instagram is IamRadness, all one word. Yeah, you heard that correct. It is IamRadness.
It's one of the greatest usernames I've ever heard.
It started out as a joke, and then I never thought that I would be using it for like an actual business. And now I'm like, well, I'm stuck here. So too many people know me by that. So yeah. But yeah, you can find me there. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm an open book, and I try and be fairly active on social media. But yeah, that's the best place to find me.
Yeah, I'll vouch for you, Clint. I mean, we've only met a few days at the Elk Shape Camp in Texas, and you've been nothing but welcoming to every message that I've ever sent you. So I appreciate you, and especially jumping on the podcast here. You are recording number 2, so there'll be hopefully many more to come. But I think we're setting a good trend here.
Yeah. We may even want to get my wife on and give her rendition of how the hunt went down. You're gonna hear
you sure you want everyone telling you want her telling everybody about her thoughts on your hunting ability?
Yeah, I mean, I put some animals down, so we're good. I feel confident in myself. But awesome. Yeah, it may be interesting to hear the opposite side of that story.
I would love that. I also feel like it's important to have females on here and hear some of their perspective and stories. Yeah. Since obviously it's a male kind of capitalized sport here. So
yeah. And she, like I told you with that first deer, she's a strong, independent lady. Like, she literally did everything on that first deer. The only thing I did was put the game bags in my bag. There was nothing else that I did. She's not afraid to get in on this stuff. and she's the one that kind of pushes me to go a little further than what I normally do.
That's awesome. And she lets you hunt on her birthday. So you've got a good one, man.
Yeah.
I cannot necessarily, I know I've got a good one too, but I can't necessarily say that she would allow me to hunt on her birthday. But fortunately, it's not during any major hunting season. So I'm lucky that
mine
way.
is, and we'll actually be hunting during her birthday this year too. But like when I hunted during it last time, I actually killed an animal during it. So that's a pretty high bar to set out of the gate. So I've got to figure out how I can recreate that every year now.
Just add a point per year, right? To the buck.
Yeah, I'll try that.
All right, man. Cool. Well, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.
Of course, man. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Clint.
Yep.
All right, guys. That's it. Another story in the books. If you have any feedback, please let us know. Just go to @huntingstories_official on Instagram and DM us. Don't forget to follow and share while you're there. I do want to thank Clint and, of course, his puppy who made a small guest appearance there. I don't know if you caught that. But I hope that you could hear the passion behind his voice. I felt it absolutely when I was speaking with him. I encourage you to share this episode with any non-hunters who are interested in getting started, because he does make it a very approachable subject. And of course, don't forget to follow him on Instagram. I put a link to his account in the show notes, but if you need it, it's IamRadness on Instagram. And then, of course, subscribe, review, comment on your preferred app, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to this podcast today. Finally, we're always looking for more storytellers. So like I said last time, if you, your dad, your friend, or whoever has a good story, hit us up. We want to hear from every kind of hunter, as long as you can tell a good story. Thank you again. Now go make some stories of your own.